I'm often a man that looks at the quiet parts and I say them out loud. I'm often the man that is looking at the small things and making a big deal about them. I'm often the man looking at the big things and making a small deal out of them as well. Point here is, why are people not negotiating with the voice in their head? You mean to tell me that, now let's just put this as plain as it is. Just looking off the numbers, look at the people around you. Every other person at the minimum around you, every other person around you doesn't have a voice in their head. Quite literally is mute in the brain, has no internal voice. There's nothing doing any introspection, none of it. So think about two things, right? A, think about the people that do have that voice in their head, but aren't mature in the sense that I can objectively say that, again, at the minimum, every other person around you right now thinks and has the mental capacity of a literal fourth grader. The way and the reason I say that is based in the logic of, again, the numbers. So when I say that, I'm saying in the sense that, okay, if, again, the 50%, every other couple is divorced, every other man around you, every other woman is involved in a divorce, and I take into account the amount of people in a family and how that's gone down over the last 100 plus years, and I take into account the fertility of women, it is beyond me, right? I don't have to think about any of this stuff. But are you thinking about it this way? And are you thinking about it, period? Point being here is that, now this is just me thinking about it. So there's people that have the voice in their head, and I'll just speak for myself. I know I have a voice in my head, but it's in the sense of, like, that is part of my consciousness. That's that. Some people, they'll be like, oh, that's the angel, or that's the devil that's on your shoulder. But then there's also that connection to source, which is a completely different conversation in itself, which still at 24 learning how to grasp. And ultimately what any of this is meaning, and where we're going with this, is that I'll just, again, speaking for myself, sitting on that course, always knew it was there, was a guiding factor in what made me the man I am today. But being a younger person, realizing, like, okay, I'm feeling judged. I'm doing the judging. Is that this thing we call God? Is that the angel and the devil kind of a thing? Is that, what is that? Where did it come from? How did it get there? I grew up religious, so a lot of it was in that vein of, okay, a lot of it is a lot of it is, oh, that's God watching you. And then I sit here realizing, like, okay, well, I didn't ever turn it off, but I was curious enough to know that by asking questions and then eventually asking the right questions, that the answers that I would receive were only meant for me to find, because I could have asked any other sort of questions, but I got a specific answer that was meant for me, that is different. It's just like this. You might like the red M&Ms. You might like black cars. You might like heavy metal music. You could have liked any kind of M&M. You could have liked any kind of car. But you like what you like. So I, for one, was able to learn beyond the voice in my head, realizing like, okay, he's here to help me. It's here to help me. Whether it has a gender or not is, we won't dive into that. But learning how to discern from it even. Because the other aspect of all of this is that I sit here realizing my choice was to learn about it, not to suppress it. My choice was to let it flourish and let it speak for itself. My choice is, to this day, to be the listener, the watcher. But also in that same sense, there's people who feel so overwhelmed by that voice in their head, they don't know what to do with it. They suppress it even. And I've been in the situation, I'll single myself out and say, I've been in that situation where I've gone and I've done things. And that voice in my head goes, why did you do that? Or I've gone and I've done things, and then I'll sit there, put my eyes down and then put my eyes up, and then the literal other choice flashes in front of me and goes, you could have had that. Or that was meant for you. Or it's like, take note because you could be doing that. Or it's saying like, oh, take note, like that's yours. Or take note. It's a very dynamic and a very fluid thing. Because as I mentioned, in the same sense, there's people that suppress it. They get overwhelmed and they don't want to deal with it. And really what that means is they don't have the tools to do really anything more than just think about it like a fourth grader would. Because then the other aspect to all this is there's some people who just don't have it at all. And coming to grips with that is unique because, well, first off, is everyone born with it? And then some people have it turned off? Like, is that a thing? Can it be turned off? I'm accepting that there's a potential for that, just in the same way that I'm accepting that people choose to suppress it. So I say this in good spirits because if there are people out there that are either overwhelmed or quite literally just don't know what to do with that voice in their head, but yet can also learn how to not be overwhelmed and learn how to tame the voice in their head, then what kind of a life is that? Because, and then a lot of the times too, I'll just, again, diving in from my own experience, is that sometimes that voice in my head is empathy. Sometimes it's despair. Sometimes it's even regret. It's even oftentimes been jealousy. But learning the lesson and being able to form it puts me in the position to understand that because other people haven't chosen that, I have to respect them for the fact that they choose to involve themselves in certain things. And because of that, that's their experience of life. Their reality is a hall of mirrors of what they are, with who they are. And no, it's not anything against anyone else. It's just that if people grow up, like in a situation like mine, for example, where they literally don't have the reasoning to do anything with what they have or who they are because their environment doesn't know any better or doesn't know anything about it, it's how likely is that person who has that voice in their head to turn it off? Because they are scared of it. They don't know how to tame it. It could be a number of things. But I'll run off by saying this. No, it does not make you insane. It's not real. You can be a mad person, but not insane. No such thing as being a psycho. No such thing as being a sociopath. No such thing as, I'd say, 99% of the labels that exist in modern psychology, completely irrelevant. It's impossible to be schizophrenic. Can there be multiple voices in your head? Absolutely. But also in that same sense, it's, if you were to round it all off, there really are only 2 types of people. 3 types of people. We'll include the middle people. You're either completely neutral, be happy-go-lucky, you want zero influence on life, you should let it happen to you, or you choose to suck life dry, negative emotion, or you choose to keep receiving water to fill your sponge, fill your cup, happy life. Because at the end of the day, that's really what psychology is. All the best. Take care.